Okay, today we're going to talk about how to write a polynomial function from the given zeros. So this is kind of going to be backwards from what we've been doing in the last lesson. The last lesson I gave you the polynomial functions and you found the zeros. So there's a few steps here that we want to talk about. First off, you want to take the zeros and write them as factors, which writing them as a factor just means put them into a parentheses. And when you're going to be putting them into the parentheses, then you're going to have to switch the sign and maybe do some math solving. We'll see. I'll kind of show you off to the side here next to number 1. It says x equals 5. So on this one, if I took the positive 5 and I move it to the same side with x, then that would be x minus 5. Now, if you have a fraction, then the first thing you would do is you would say, I'm going to get rid of the fraction by, and I'll write it up here, multiplying both sides by the denominator. So then I would have 5x equals negative 3. And then I just move my negative 3 over. So that's how I got 5x plus 3. So you can just remember the bottom number swings in front of x, and then you change the sign on the top. So once you have them written as to factors, then they'll be in parentheses. So then you can start working on multiplying them with the box. And then once you've done your multiplication, then you just combine your like terms. And remember to always write your answer in descending order. So let's scroll here and get started. Okay, so on the first one, I would think to myself, I have x equals negative 3. And when I move negative 3 over, it becomes x plus 3. The next one, I would have x equals 5. And when I move the 5 over, it becomes x minus 5. And then this multiplicity of 2. Multiplicity of 2 means that this counts twice. So if it counts twice, you're going to write another parentheses down of x minus 5. Good. So once you have all your parentheses down, then you just start working on your boxes. So I'm going to do the first two parentheses. So here's my normal 2 by 2 box. So x, 3, x, negative 5. So x squared, 3x, minus 5x, minus 15. And that will give me x squared. Combine your like terms right here. So negative 2x minus 15. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take this one and you're going to multiply it by the last parentheses that we haven't used yet. And so we're going to make another box, but this time we're going to make a rectangular box. So x squared, negative 2x, negative 15, x, negative 5. Okay, then we're just going to start our multiplying. And remember, when you're multiplying, you add your exponents. So x to the third minus 2x squared minus 15x minus 5x squared plus 10x plus 75. And then we're going to have x to the third. Then combine your x squareds here for negative 7x squared. And remember, when you switch to adding, you do not change the exponent, just the coefficient. And then you're going to add these two like terms here together and get negative 5x. And then keep plus 75. And that would make your final answer. let's go on to the next one. All right, so remember with the fraction ones, the bottom number would technically be what you are going to multiply each side by. And then you're going to take the 5 and move it over. So I get 2x minus 5. And then remember, if you want the shortcut, the bottom number just swings in front of x and you change the sign of the top number. So whichever way you want to do it for the next fraction, that's completely up to you. So I'll show the algebraic way. And then I got 3x plus 2. And then something we haven't talked about here yet is the last one, where my last 0 is 0. So here, if I just go x equals 0, well, 0 is not really positive or negative. So when you move it over, you can think of it as x minus 0 or x plus 0. But really, that's just the same thing as saying it's just an x. Okay, because if you add 0 or subtract 0 from x, it just stays as x. So right here, you're just going to multiply it by x. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the first two parentheses. So I'm going to make my normal box here. So 2x minus 5, 3x, 2. So 6x squared minus 15x, 4x minus 10. And then I'm going to combine my like terms here. So I get 6x squared minus 11x minus 10. And then I'm going to multiply that by x. So what I want to do is just take this x and distribute it. So if I multiply each one by x, it becomes 6x to the third minus 11x squared minus 10x. Done. Now the last two here, let me scroll. These are a little bit different because you notice that these involve imaginary numbers because you now see the letter I. The first thing you have to know is that I's always have to come in pair. But they're going to be sneaky and they're never going to give you both of the I numbers. They're only going to give you one of them. But what you need to know is if there's a positive I number, there's always a negative I number. Or vice versa. If I give you a negative one, there's always a positive one. So when I look at this problem, I'm like, oh, I see a positive 2i. So that means there has to also be a negative 2i because you have to have a positive and a negative I. So now I'm just going to start writing them into parentheses. So move the negative 3 over and you get x plus 3. And then x equals 2i. Move that over and you get x minus 2i. And then I'm going to take the negative 2i and move it over so I get x plus 2i. Now, when you get ready to multiply these, I'm going to put a little star here, something you need to know. If you have an I, you must times the 2i parentheses together first. So super important. So you can't take the first parentheses times the second parentheses because the second parentheses has an I. So what I want you to do is I want you to make a box for the parentheses that both have I's in them. Okay, so you always got to start with the I parentheses first. So then I get I squared minus 2ix positive 2ix, and negative 4i squared. Now I'm going to put a little star here too because something else we have to remember from unit 2, I squared equals negative 1. So right here I see this I squared, so I'm going to think of it as negative 4 times negative 1, which will really just switch that to a positive 4 in the last box. And then hopefully everybody notices here when I do my like terms, a positive 2ix and a negative 2ix, they cancel each other out. So really I'm just left with x squared plus 4. So you notice there should be no i's left, okay? Because in all the problems that we've done in the past and you've been looking at them, you'll notice that they have never had an I listed in the equation, okay? So remember, all the i's go away. Now I'm going to take this times our parentheses that didn't have an I, which is x plus 3. And then I'm going to make another little box. So x squared 4x 3. So x to the third, 4x, 3x squared, and 12. For this one, there are no like terms in the box. So I'm just going to list these 4 terms out. Remember to go in descending order. So your final answer should be x to the third plus 3x squared plus 4x plus 12. Okay. Then let's go to the next one. If there's a positive 4i, then there must also be a negative 4i. And then you want to write these into parentheses. Okay. So one of the parentheses is going to be x minus 4i. The other one's going to be x plus 4i. And then remember the trick for the fraction. The bottom number goes in front of x, and then you change the sign of the top number. So if you don't want to set x equals each one and then move it over, figure it out, then here's the shortcut way. Multiply the 2 parentheses that have i's together, which are my first 2. So I get x squared minus 4ix, positive 4ix, negative 16i squared. The positive and negative 4ix's cancel out. I see an I squared, which I squared is just going to flip the sign. So that's going to flip this to positive 16. So you're looking at x squared plus 16. And then you have 5x minus 1 that you want to still multiply it by. So now you're going to make another box here. So x squared, 16, 5x, negative 1. So then I'm going to get 5x to the third, 80x minus x squared minus 16. And then none of these are like terms, so just write all 4 of them down. 5x to the third. Remember to go in descending order. Minus x squared plus 80x minus 16. And that is your final answer. Done.